Time now for our live Q&A here on Facebook and on YouTube. If you're a longtime subscriber, you know the deal. Use the hashtag, in this case it's CFP, and we'll get your questions on the show. And if you use a super chat, we'll also typically get you up here as well. So just keep that in mind here. Get going here. First up from Tommy H. If PSU loses a close game to Ohio State, do they still get in?
That's interesting because we've talked about that with LSU and Alabama a lot, especially the national media who ignores every other conference in college football. We don't do that here at Chat Sports. This is an interesting one. Let's say Penn State blows out Minnesota. They've already got the wins over Iowa and Michigan. Those two teams keep winning, so those are ranked wins. And then you play OSU tight. It's going to be tough still because you're not in that Big Ten title game. We haven't that would be tough to see, but I think there is a scenario where they could still get in.
It needs, I think, in particular help from the Pac-12 and the Big 12. I think if there is a one-loss Penn State team that only lost to Ohio State close and two-loss Oregon, Oklahoma win those, I think there's
one more scenario too. One-loss LSU or Bama is getting in over one-loss Penn State. So the loser of that game would need to lose the second time.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair there. So Penn State, they're number 4 right now. They will need some help, though, with a loss if they're going to get in, but there is a path for it. All right, Jake the Loser, is there SEC favoritism when the Big Ten has more top 25 teams?
I mean, always, right? And Grant, look, SEC plays really good football. I'm not dogging the conference. I think it's probably the best league this year. But I think we act like sometimes that they're just playing another sport. Look, it's probably the best team in the country. I think the Big Ten's very good. Big 12 and Pac-12 are a little further back this year. We know the ACC is bad, but I think the Big Ten's close to the SEC this year. Not as much at the top outside of Ohio State, but I think, you put the 4th best Big Ten team up against the 4th best SEC team, you're probably going to have a good ball game.
Let us know in the comments which conference you guys think is best. I'm sure that won't be divisive at all. But have fun in the comments. Be nice with each other. I will make note, the SEC does have 5 of the top 11. So maybe the top is better in the SEC. The overall depth is better in the
that's a good way to put it. The depth of the Big Ten is better. I think the top 5 or 6 is probably stronger than the SEC.
Alan Varner wants to know why the committee changed up the rankings this year. Well, they do it every year. I'm not sure if you're comparing to last year's or the AP polls, but they do that every season.
Or maybe he means when they release them, possibly. I'm not sure.
Don't know.
They've historically built it around this, that basketball doubleheader. They've done that in recent years. This is the top 6 in case you missed it. Ohio State, LSU, Bama, and Penn State are in the bracket as of now. Clemson and Georgia on the outside looking in. I don't know really how else to answer that question. I don't think they changed much. This is the same process they've done the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's their own different criteria, very different than the AP poll. And in most cases, I actually kind of prefer it to what the AP poll does, where there's a lot of recency bias, and
the AP poll is also a lot of voters who cover one team in one conference, and they don't watch the entire country.
All right, some more comments coming in. This one from Chad Johnston, related to Ocho Cinco. Why is it every year the weak SEC gets a loss pass when everyone else doesn't? They are not that great where ESPN puts them on a pedestal.
I don't know what to tell you. I feel like we answer this. We talk about this every year. This year, 3 of the top 6 are in the SEC. Auburn and Florida are 10 and 11. Although we thought they would be higher, so maybe they're backing off that a little bit. Look, in the end, guys, this stuff plays itself out. Only one time has 2 SEC teams made the playoff. And quite frankly, I didn't really have a problem with it. I think it came down to Bama and a 2-loss Ohio State. I mean, what do you want them to do there? Pick the 2-loss team? I guess you could go with the conference champion there, but overall, I think it's actually been okay.
Today's show is brought to you by BetDSI. Head over to chatsports.com/bet. Use that promo code CFB120. That gets you a 120% deposit bonus. So you put down $50, there's an extra $60 in your bank account there on BetDSI for free. Number 1 sportsbook, it's chatsports.com/bet. Use that promo code CFB120. All right, undisputed record. How can Chase Young win the Heisman Trophy?
Like this one. I am on the train of Chase Young winning the Heisman. I think he's the best pure player in college football.
Agreed.
If you watch that Wisconsin game, who jumped off the tape? Chase Young. He's
well.
by far the best player in that game, and that includes players like Jonathan Taylor and Justin Fields and J.K. Dobbins and plenty of other NFL talent on the field in that game. The way he does it, got to have 20+ sacks at least, right? And they need to go undefeated.
If he can break Terrell Suggs' sack mark.
What was
22, I believe is what
where's
that
he,
is.
And where's he at right now?
He's in Arizona.
No, where's Chase Young at in terms
14 or 14 and a half.
I can't
remember if it's the half.
He can get there.
He's
They
on
play
pace.
Maryland this weekend.
He's on pace with the bowl game.
Yes.
And I think the other big thing for Ohio State is they have to have a committed push to say, vote for Chase Young, not Justin Fields or J.K. Dobbins. Valid candidates in their own rights as well.
Absolutely, but I do think Chase Young has kind of emerged as the candidate from that school. Fields is still floating around, but to me, Young is the guy out of Ohio State. You just hope it doesn't cannibalize itself up there.
All right, Z-Miss, do you think Oklahoma can bump up if they beat number 12 Baylor?
Oh, of course. I mean, that's a solid top 10, top 15 win, and you hope Baylor gets into the top 10 by the time they play each other. That's the key there for Oklahoma. Look, it's tricky for the Big 12 this year because there's a lot of decent teams. There's not a lot of ranked teams. So you're not going to have a lot of those top 25 wins. So you need Baylor to keep winning if you're OU, and you need them to only lose to you if that makes sense. Maybe you play them a second time in Arlington, beat them a second time, and show the committee, hey, we just beat a good team twice down the stretch. That's kind of their path right now. Big 12's in a tough spot, though, Tom. Based on what I saw tonight, there's not a clear path to get them to the playoff without a decent amount of help.
All right, we've got a twofold giveaway alert for you guys here. First off, if you want to be entered for a chance to win a free sports coat from KASHIYAMA, go follow them on Instagram. We'll give that away in a couple of weeks. We'll DM that lucky winner. It's on Instagram at KASHIYAMA Tailors. We'll get the link in the chat for you guys. The second part of this, because there's always more here, once we get to 3,000 followers on KASHIYAMA, 3,000 followers for KASHIYAMA, we're going to give away $25 on Venmo. Once we get there, we are at 2,911. So once we get to 3,000 followers on KASHIYAMA's Instagram, we will hook you guys up. So I got some shout-outs here to do as well with some of the more recent ones. We got Preston, Jose Chavez out there. I got some more here coming in. Jeffrey Cherry's in there, and Ethan as well. All right, Carter Sports. Ohio State or Clemson, who do you think would win a neutral site game?
That's interesting because there's no debate on where Clemson belongs currently in terms of, the schedule and all that and the rankings. But if they played on a neutral field, you could argue those two teams have more talent than anyone else. LSU and Bama would have an argument, but Clemson still has a ton of talent. And you see the rankings there. They're at number 5. They've got so much talent. That offense has future first-rounders all over it. Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, a couple of receivers in T. Higgins and Justin Ross. There's talent everywhere. The defense, there's been a bit of a learning curve this year, but they've played better recently. That would be like a pick'em type game to me. Maybe Ohio State's a 3-point favorite.
If you had asked me before the year, I would have said, Clemson, but Ohio State's been so good this year.
I know.
I think I'd have to go with the Buckeyes.
I'd have to go with the Buckeyes, but I do think it would be less than 3 points in terms of the spread.
All right, Troy Daniels, if Oregon wins out and is invited to a New Year's Six bowl game, does Utah get the invite to the Rose Bowl if they end up playing Oregon in the title game? So we got some bowl questions
Well,
here.
the Oregon one here, I think if they're only in the New Year's Six,
they would get
the Rose Bowl by winning the
yeah.
Pac-12. But if they make the playoff, I don't think it's an automatic that Utah would go to the Rose Bowl, but typically they like to go that route and stick with the tradition there.
Yeah.
So most likely in that scenario, Utah would play in the Rose Bowl, which would be a huge accomplishment for that football program.
Anytime you go to a Rose Bowl, you should feel like you had a successful season.
Any New Year's Six game.
Oh,
if you get there, that's a hell of a season.
Maybe at this point, if you're Clemson, Bama, OSU, you feel a bit let down, but that shouldn't be the case there at all. Remember, Oregon is number 7 right now. Utah is number 8. In theory, they will meet later on this year if everything goes according to plan.
Unless UCLA, which actually controls its destiny in the Pac-12 South, wins out.
Hey, I think Oregon State does too.
I would expect they've
the
surprisingly had a nice little season. Oregon and Utah, I would expect those two teams to play in the Pac-12 title game.
We'll loop through the other top 25 here of the CFP rankings. The very first ones that came out Tuesday night for you guys. Auburn's 11, Baylor's 12, Wisconsin 13. Maybe you could have a Ohio State gets in, maybe a Penn State, Utah/Oregon Rose Bowl this year.
That'd be fun. I think that's the one thing about the playoff that bothers me is everybody ignores these other games. I don't. I still like the tradition of college football and big rivalry games and these other bowl games. I would love to see Utah and Michigan in the Rose Bowl. That would be great.
Kansas State, they're number 16. Minnesota's number 17. Iowa's 18. Wake's 19. Cincinnati, speaking of those New Year's Six bowls, they are the group of five's best shot right
Yeah, and I think they play Memphis in a couple of weeks, who's
Ooh, that's
number
a good
21. That's another juicy one. We just saw Memphis take down SMU 54-48. I hope you push the over on that one. SMU, Navy still in the mix in terms of the group of five race. It's a fun, competitive G5 year because the last couple of years, UCF has just dominated as they have not lost a game in the regular season. Cincinnati's got the inside track.
Memphis, Boise State, Navy, SMU also still in the mix for that, in theory, potential New Year's Six bowl game for a group of five team. But Cincinnati, I think Memphis, too, in particular, really do control their own destiny at the moment.
That winner of Memphis-Cincinnati is going to be feeling pretty good. They would have to lose a second time for them to not have the inside track there.
Memphis should be undefeated. They kind of got screwed there by Temple. I think that was a bad call.
That's true.
All right, Carter Sports again here wants to know, what's your final playoff ranking predictions?
What did I say earlier? I will go with I think I had the 2 SEC route earlier, but I'm gonna change.
Oh, you're gonna be a flip-flopper.
That was before the rankings came out. The committee shocked me with the Pac-12. I'm gonna throw Oregon in there.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Oregon. And that was actually 3 of the 4 I had coming into the season, actually, as well.
Okay.
So I'm going to pat myself on the back for that one. But I think the committee likes the Pac-12 more this year, which has not been the case in recent seasons. I think if Oregon wins out, they're going to have a good shot to make it.
I'll do some shout-outs here. If you guys put your 4 teams in the comments on YouTube and on Facebook here. I do see a lot of SEC comments because it just means more, Harrison.
Oh, it always means more.
Ryan thinks you're on crack if you think Clemson finishes ahead of Ohio State. You are not talking.
I wasn't talking, guys. I'm not talking the order. I'm talking about the 4 teams to make it. Clemson could go unbeaten and be the 4th team, quite frankly.
All right, definitely not a Packers fan with a Packers profile pic. How is Clemson 5 when they are the defending champs and still putting up numbers, plus a lot of stars putting up amazing numbers, only playing about 3/4 a game? You want to take this one, Harrison?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to dissect you up here, but a couple of things here. 1, last year's irrelevant. That's the most important thing here. 2, at times they have not looked great. They should have lost to North Carolina. 3, the ACC sucks. There's 3 bullet points for you. I'm not bagging on Clemson. I think they're one of the best teams in the country, but it just is what it is, guys. They don't play a tough schedule this year, and last year is last year, this year is this year. That's the main point there.
You missed a chance to make a slice joke about cheese, but that's okay. I will allow it to slide there. Now, everyone pay attention here because we will be back again next Tuesday, November 12th, 7 p.m. Eastern this time, with the latest batch of CFP rankings. It's youtube.com/chatsportstv. Subscribe. Make sure you've got notifications turned on. You will be notified once these CFP rankings come out. Harrison and I will have you covered. And if you guys missed anything in the initial top 25 from the CFP, we got you covered coming up right now on Loop.